Please tee it up.
So, not to be the resident NIL college guy from last week's episode, but I'll take that role. Florida actually passed, the state of Florida actually passed that high schoolers can now make NIL money from high schools and middle schools to where, however young they want to go. So I think that's pretty groundbreaking. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. If that's good for the just sports in general, good for the high schoolers, good for the families. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. I think when it comes to NIL in high school, it's very interesting just seeing the money slowly bleed in. Obviously, we've seen it in college, but now even younger into high school. Um, I think it will only inflate a lot of the very big egos that already exist amongst these top stars, rightly so, right? If any of us were making any type of sponsorship or money based off our athletic performance in high school, I think we would be hard to not have that same mindset. But I also think it's going to get quite tricky, and I would assume that there's probably in the future going to be some issues with luring kids to other schools with, you know, under the table NIL deals. And I just wonder, you see coaches all the time get hit for that now in modern day high school where they're not allowed to recruit other kids into their system, but depending on the districts and the rules that they have set there. But that could get quite sticky and almost turn into a thing like we're seeing now in college, right? I mean, if you're not at a great school, maybe somebody's ahead of you and you're offered something else to go play at another school, why wouldn't you go jump ship? Of course, it's not as easy in high school as it is in college, but curious to see if we'll see a lot of player movement like we are in college there.
Froze there for a second. Where are we? We all back?
I think so.
Okay. I'll dive in next. Yeah, for the NIL stuff though, I think it's going to be interesting to see some of these like ESPN top 100 recruits, like how much they'll be getting paid like freshman year of high school. Because by the time they're like 16 or 17, if they're already in the top 10, they're most likely going to be that high when they get to their senior year. And it'll also be interesting, at least on a football aspect, to see if people try to graduate early like they have been, like graduate on the midway through senior year to go enroll early into college, or if they're just going to be like, well, I can just enjoy my senior spring of high school, make money, and not have to go worry about college already. So I think that's just a weird like thing to try to think about, and how all these huge recruits, are they going to try to go to bigger schools in Texas? Like if you're from Idaho and you're some hot shot, are you going to try to transfer somewhere that has a bigger market? Like does that start to affect things? Because and just state by state, how the at least in Florida, like if this gets adopted overall, it's just going to be interesting to see who can compete with who. And then are we just going to have like the certain states for sports and certain states for school, kind of like the Ivy League and the SEC? And is that going to trickle down into high school?
Maybe we're better off guys being high school boosters than we would be SEC big time SEC boosters. I wonder what the limits would be in comparison for high school. So maybe that's our avenue there.
Should should we try to get some guy an NIL deal for the fifth quarter collective? Some top
That
one
would be
recruit.
hilarious. That would be sweet. Get them
I
on
think
here weekly.
do we just pick a school and that's our high school and we support it?
Yeah, but we none of us could have gone to it. We got to pick like a random school and be like, this is who we're rocking with. This is our school in Florida, and we don't know. We're just gonna pick one.
I like that.
I like that.
My
The
my
contract's
thing,
going to be as wild as they are in college. Probably to start off, I would assume no. But I mean, if it's going to be like the wild, wild west that it is now in college, I mean, I'm sure that'll translate to high school. Like, will that then affect the amount that then college is going to have to fork over for these kids now too? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but it's just going to, yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to find some
One
more deeper pockets for sure.
one thing I want to touch on is think of how some of these kids who have, let's just say, no financial literacy or really like budgeting skills, they just get handed a ton of money at like 16. They can't even drive yet. Like, what else are you going to spend money on? They might show up to school with a Rolex on at 15 because they're like, I can't buy a car. So here I am with this.
That's
Like,
crazy.
and then you also have to be worried
the
about
college
NIL.
the college athletes, like when Johnny Manziel was around. I mean, Johnny obviously was his own personality, but think of that at 15. Like you're less mature, you have less life experience. So
But a lot of these schools now, especially in Division One, have NIL agents associated with each player to help them manage all of the financial literacy around it, how much money you're getting, what to invest, where to go, stuff like that. So a lot of the colleges have that, and still, even like smaller D1, and sometimes these big D1 recruits, it's like their uncle, it's like their aunt, it's someone in their family who really has no idea what they're doing. So a lot of these kids later on down the road will be getting screwed out of whether how much money they earn, how much their agent's going to take home. So high school, I think that's just going to be a whole nother level of you have to get some competent NIL agents down to the high school level and really figure these things out. But I think you're not going to have enough agents for all the players in the state of Florida. A lot of these kids are going to get screwed out of a lot of money or be in debt to their agent, to their uncle, who that person is. There's going to be a lot of issues there with the different things like taxes. Where's my money? How am I going to spend it? When do I get all of it? So it's a very interesting process. And I think this is revolutionary, but it's not really the first step that NIL in high school has taken. I want to say about a year ago, Missouri allowed their seniors to get paid NIL if they go to in-state schools. So I think this is like they're really the second iteration of that high school NIL process. So I'd be interested to see how this works on a full scale, not just with your senior athletes, but everyone from ninth through 10th grade or ninth all the way up to 12th grade. So I think that's one way to look at it. The second way, just let me ballpark it here. I think we're thinking outside the box, big brain thinking here. You have a lot of these prep schools in Florida, like your IMG, like your Montverde Academy, and I want to say another one in Pensacola. So you have a good amount of these big prep schools that recruit all over the country. Now these guys can actually are like boosters to where they can pay these players, these families to come play for these schools. My question to you guys is, does this affect high school athletics in general? Yeah, sure, you're still going to have your typical public schools, but now these big academies can now recruit and pluck kids and pay for everything, not just scholarships to these private academies and prep schools and charter schools, plug and play these kids from whether it's Miami, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Tampa, Sarasota, into these prep schools. And I think it kind of changes the space of high school athletics. Want to get your guys' thoughts on that and like the evolution of like these big prep schools in the state of Florida.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I mean, it's quite comparable to any other sports league, right? If they didn't have salary caps and all of that, what would we see, right? We'd see all the best players in the major markets, and the smaller cities just wouldn't be able to compete. So there needs to be some equalizer, almost like what we're seeing in college football. Again, I don't know what it'll take to get us there, but it's going to set like a new market, a player market, and really drive those players to the highest rewarding and most incentivized schools where they're offering cars or whatever it may be. But I do think it'll really shift. Well, then again, will it shift the dynamic? Maybe, but I think what you'll probably just see is more and more great players will just continue to be flooded into those schools that can actually afford it.
I think, I thought about this probably, I don't know if I even mentioned this in the last episode, but I think what the problem is these contracts are like, they're not public. So, like, if they're used as like negotiation tactics, so like, oh, I heard X is gonna pay me this, so can you meet me there? Like in that vein. But if it's like, for public, if you're a public school, I mean, you're a public employee, I guess, at that point, right? So every public employee, I'm pretty sure, you can see what they're making. So why can't you see at that point what these kids are making as far as contracts? So it's not going to be like overinflated. Because I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be something with the contracts and them being visible would help, one, college, and then two, it's going to bleed into this high school deal. So I don't know.
And just lastly too, I think the big point was you get a lot of these young kids with a lot of new money, some of which they maybe have never seen before. How far out are we from having like another ESPN 30 for 30 like broke? I don't know if that was a decade ago, but just kind of looking at some of the financial mishaps and how college athletes or high school athletes might have been taken advantage of, since they're a bit more naive. And I do worry about that. I think especially when you get families involved, right? Parents could actually be stealing from their own kids, and so that could be quite tragic. But I'm interested to see how it all plays out for sure.
Yeah, plus when you look at it from a legal standpoint, like you're really trying to give money to not even a full grown adult, like they're 15, 16. So it's like you probably are going to have either go through the school, an agent, or like a family member, like we said, who could have like actually manage it or like be a part of it. Because if you're handing 20, $30,000 to some 15-year-old walking in to play left tackle at IMG, like, what do you think he's going to spend it on if he just has it drop into his account day one when he walks to class? Like, he might be down 5 grand by Friday just because he's like, oh, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But that'll be a big thing. But it's definitely there's going to be some people trying to take advantage of kids. So, the biggest thing would be to try to protect the athletes as much as possible because it could easily turn into, oh, if you just do this, I'll pay you more money. If you just do this. And then they're just walking them down a rabbit hole where they graduate high school or not even graduate high school, get paid, and then maybe they don't make it in college, and that's that. Like they're just done.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, if I had if I had a lot of money, I mean, I'd be spending it on at that age underdog best ball drafts, whatever you could think of, right? I mean, just things that you think are important at that time, especially with all these gaming sites now. And real quick before we move on here, guys, just want to go around the horn. Let's say in another life we were really prime high school athletes. Who would you want your sponsor to be? Could be from a hometown, or what deal would you want to land in high school or college? Would love to just hear that real quick.
Royal Farms chicken. All you
Is
can
that
eat fried chicken.
local to Maryland?
Yeah, local
Mhm.
Mid-Atlantic. All you can eat fried chicken, potato wedges. Yeah, I'll take that.
Dude, that's
Me and
good.
my
Yeah, I
buddies,
was gonna-
me and my buddies, anytime you go into Royal Farms, you get free chicken. Why? Because of me. So yeah,
I was gonna go Skyline Chili.
I personally think I would try to go with something local. That this will probably only be with Jake and everybody who's from Wisconsin, but going with Cops, their ice cream. I mean, I could win a game, go get a burger, probably the best burger and ice cream in the state of Wisconsin. So I try to get sponsored by Cops. They're kind of close to our high school. Something local because I don't think if I went and said Chick-fil-A, they'd be sponsoring a 15-year-old. So that's where I'm at.
And I I'd definitely go Culver's. Yeah, Culver's. Growing up in the Midwest, get me a concrete mixer, get me some cheese curds. Yeah, we're chowing down after the football game on Friday nights for sure. So
That was a
funny
great
funny how we all went that route though.